Morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed the week off like we did, like I did. Appreciate you braving the cold to be here today. First, I want to talk about what's been obviously the most prevalent topic in our building since the morning of January 1st, which is the tragedy that happened in New Orleans. And obviously, I feel personally, and I think we feel. Obviously, our hearts go out to all the victims there. As I mentioned to everybody, when you live in Pensacola, we all have some kind of personal connection to New Orleans, not just geographically, but either it's where we spent time with our family, where our family lives, where they've moved to. I have the same personal connection. In fact, my brother was about 2 blocks away, asleep. From where the attack happened on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. And was in there during the lockdown and as they looked for IEDs and things like that. So, we all have a personal connect. We all do as Pensacolians. We've through memories or through family, and so our hearts go out to them. I did. I was able to connect quickly with Mayor Cantrell, and certainly we offered any. As we know, I'm sure the resources of the federal government and the world are at our disposal at this point, but nonetheless, that anything that we could do, the City of Pensacola, to be helpful, we're at the ready. So, she was appreciative of that. And as they continue to deal with that, I think every city in the country is looking at the new world we live in as it pertains to large gatherings and public events. And the first, second, and third priority of this job is to keep the people safe who live here. And there are no other jobs more important than that. There are no other initiatives. There's no other projects. There's no other thing that is more important than that for our residents. So in the same way that we, things changed when Columbine happened in 1999 about how we secure our schools, and things changed about how we fly on September 11th, 2001. I think in some sense, I'm not comparing any of the events, but in some sense, how public events are secured and what our world is today versus where it was last week is different. So there's really 3 things that I would want to assure the public. Number one is we have an amazing public safety team here, which is police and fire, but it's also public works and parks and rec, and there's lots of other people that keep the city safe, whether it be during a hurricane, during a freeze, or setting up for a parade. That there are a lot of people, lots of people, very dedicated people that are in charge. And again, what we have in place and who we have in place, I have the utmost confidence in, is number one. Number two, that we're analyzing this new world that we live in, and we have been in the hours following. So that's not to say that a plan that we have for a festival at Seville Square or for a parade isn't sufficient. We obviously, you can look at the track record. We have a pretty stellar track record in public safety to this point. So this is not a questioning what we are doing, but this is a new world that needs to be looked at with fresh eyes, and that is what we're in the process of doing right now. So we've had several all-hands meetings to have this discussion, and really prescribe that we get amnesia about what the things that we've done and what has worked for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, and look at that again. Doesn't mean we won't do the same thing, but we have been presented a new security threat, a new safety concern, and we all know what the City of Pensacola and its connection to gathering together as community, not just for parades, not just for Mardi Gras or Fiesta, but at Seville Square, at Maritime Park. That's the fabric of who we are, and it will continue to be who we are. So one, I want you to know we've got amazing staff that does a great job keeping our people safe, which is our first job. Number two, I want you to know that we are analyzing what's happened, and I think it was reported, you noticed, we started having those conversations, and there was a public road closure on Saturday, and we were able to tap in with our state partners and get some additional barricades for some of the sidewalks. We had deployed immediately, so that's just one concept. As the weeks go on and the months go on, there'll be things that our citizens will notice, and there'll be things that our citizens won't notice, intentionally so, that will be safety improvements. So we have our team really diagnosing and through the vision, through the lens now of this new world we live in, what needs to take place. And then last, what I will ask for in the weeks and months ahead for our citizens is that we practice some patience and some understanding that security is our number one concern. So if things are going to change, and where you can drive before a parade might change, how close you can get to Seville Square might change. We don't know that, but I would expect that we will see some changes that will affect convenience. And as maybe our memories fade about what's happened in New Orleans and the months that go on around here, maybe it will fade, and we'll go back to where convenience starts to take precedent because public safety seems too unrealistic or far away. There will be some changes to convenience. I would be willing to bet you in the weeks and months ahead, because public safety should be our number one concern. So we are building, analyzing, strategizing around the job number 1, 2, and 3 here, which is public safety, and then we will adjust and we will communicate what some of those changes might be. I do not come up here this early on with any finalized substantive changes other than some of the things that you've already seen. We are deploying more security assets, more infrastructure assets that will be deployed starting last Saturday and will be certainly through MLK Parade, holiday, Mardi Gras season. But this conversation is not just for this month and next month. This conversation is long term. So I'll continue to update you guys and update the public on what that may look like. But I want you to know, and I want folks to know, we aren't running in fear. These are the fabric, these events and these gatherings together, whether it even just be a busy Saturday night on Palafox Street, are part of the fabric of who we are. And I feel I've been elected to put in this position for the first job to keep our people, to keep our children safe. So we'll continue to move forward aggressively and intentionally with that. And I would imagine that over the coming weeks, we will be giving you some updates on the things that we can update. Obviously, we're not going to be rolling out a public security plan to for every bad actor to potentially see. But we will, the things that we can share, we will be sharing in the time moving ahead. Happy to take questions on that in a minute. A few other things, obviously legislative priorities tomorrow afternoon. At Pensacola State, I'll be speaking with, obviously, as other agencies are, with Representative Salzman, Andrade, and Senator Gates. And so we will be talking about the airport and also about some safety and security things there. So we continue to be in communication with their offices, not just on this day in the public, but all the time, trying to make sure that that they understand our priorities and that we're fighting for those things. Just to round up quickly on council agenda that you'll see coming up this afternoon, I would believe, maybe tomorrow at the latest. This council meeting is always a little difficult by the time you backtrack items and when they need to be turned in. It's kind of like during the week between Christmas and New Year. So we're getting the last few things that the agenda might be delayed a touch, but you'll see a earth stabilization project for $250,000 at Gold Point. We bring that up because it looks like we have lots of parks and maintenance, and that's going to be a big conversation with the public later this month about the parks overhaul that we've been discussing. But just as a side to that, you'll see that as an item. That's ultimately something we got to go safety concern that we got to go take care of with some erosion. So for $250,000, there's stormwater runoff that was creating a hazard. Bay Bluffs Park, there will be an item on there that will be ultimately what DEP. So the 2.2 million we received from DEP to Conservation Florida. Part of the requirement to have those funds released is, of course, the partnership between Conservation Florida and the city. So they want to see that before they release the funds, which we of course have, but the formality of that will be taking place on this council agenda. So you'll see an item about Bay Bluffs and say, well, what is that about? That's step one to continue the engagement and get us back in repaired at Bay Bluffs Parks, which we're very, very excited to start that process and to engage with the community in that process. So there's not a lot of tangible development in terms of what's going to go where and all of that, but this is that step to be able to get those funds released. So we know it's taken some time, and with 3 agencies involved, the city, a conservation organization, and the state all involved, things move perhaps a little slower, but we are excited to get that moving, and so you'll see that. That's what the Bay Bluffs one means. There's a MOU, if it makes the agenda. If it won't be this time, we'll see. It'll be obviously in February. Is a MOU between the UW Historic Trust and the city on locating one of our Portland loos directly behind the State Museum, right there at Museum Plaza. So I would say the good way to describe it is it's kind of facing Zaragoza, almost across from the side entrance, the side courtyard of the little theater. There is where the location will be. That is something they're helping contribute financially. That helps us at Palafox Market not need to have a temporary or a porta potty on the corner of Palafox and Government, and as another amenity for our downtown. So that was with UWF. So if you don't see that on the agenda, that'll be something coming in February. But ultimately, it's just that agreement to put it on that property, that they're contributing a little bit financially, and then we'll. Right now, the pads, the installation pads for the skate park, for MLK Plaza, and for now Museum Plaza are out for bid. So we've already started that process. We're not waiting to get those to bid on this agreement. We feel real confident that we'll get that done. Cobb Center, you'll see we're asking council to approve funding for the architectural and engineering plans for Cobb. You may recall the $1.7 million figure that I've already discussed publicly. That's really the job one things that make sure that we don't let yet another community center fall too far into disrepair, and that won't be happening. Whoever the next mayor or two is after me won't have to say, I wonder why Mayor Reeves didn't fix the things that need to be fixed. So we got to jump on it. 1.7 million we think is what will get that outside envelope, the glue and arches, the roof, all those things that need to be done. And so the item that is coming forward is funding the architecture and engineering of that priority one list. So we took the structural assessment, made the decision of what we were going to fix, and then this is going out to bid for A&E on that, and that will get the plan to 100%, and then work can begin. No exact date on that yet. Obviously cold weather. I know some of you guys in the media haven't already shared shelters and all that. I know that every year it seems like questions come up about city and shelters. Obviously, there's a more coordinated effort of where those shelters are in place. Escambia County Emergency Management works with providers. So I know there's cold weather shelters at Waterfront Rescue Mission, at Maxwell Respite Center, My Father's Vineyard, and we have the list of those shelters up on our website at cityofpensacola.com. So make sure that you look at all of that. We've had internal conversations like we do for storms, for hurricanes, about how we can make sure that the city's ready to go from an infrastructure standpoint. We keep close eyes on the forecast, obviously, and it's looking like, I know there was some conversation about snow or ice. You'll have to get a meteorologist to give you a better answer, but as of Monday, we didn't expect any substantive need for us to be doing anything, but that could change by the hour. So, but what I can tell our citizens is our teams, our public works team, and everybody, and our police department, everybody is ready. If weather changes or becomes a need, we'll certainly communicate that with you guys. If you use the airport, you'll see a little more parking construction soon. We're working on a new cell phone lot that's scheduled to begin on Monday, this Monday, January 13th. It'll be near the short-term lot 1 as you enter the airport. There'll be a cell phone lot. And the reason for a cell phone lot, and talk about modernization for safety reasons, the reason for a cell phone lot is without it, there's additional waiting at the curb. And anybody who's lived here a long time, if you're in your car, I think our policy is kind of, you can hang out as long as you want on the curb. That's not normal at most airports. That you might be picking somebody up, but the idea is not to be waiting 20 and 30 minutes at the curb. If you've been anywhere else, that we are an outlier in that. But we were an outlier in that because we didn't have the infrastructure in place to make sure that if you are needing to just wait for someone, you have somewhere to do it. So kind of hard to knock on someone's window and say, move along, but we don't really have anywhere to move you to. So that's what the purpose of this will be. It's looking like, I don't want to give an exact date. It should be a quick project, 4 or 5 weeks potentially is what we're looking at. We're looking at maybe the 3rd week of February of having that done. So got through the holiday season and kind of maybe in the slower season here, get that cell phone lot. And so how will that affect the citizen? 1, it's available so you can be waiting in a more efficient way. And 2 is it should help clear up and increase our safety at the curb itself in the months ahead once that is completed. So appreciate the airport jumping on that. So a little bit of service expansion update we're excited about at the airport. Delta is now accepting reservations for nonstop service to Detroit. That will be, I believe, June 14th to September 6th. And I believe it's Saturdays. And anytime we get new service, I always tell you it's a tangible indicator of the prosperity and the growth and the potential that these major carriers see in our community. Actually, Detroit was one of our largest connected destinations to and from Pensacola. I believe at one point was number 1, as a matter of fact. So what that means for our citizens, it means Detroit is the Midwestern hub for Delta. So that means it's going to be that many more options if you're flying anywhere in that region to be able to connect quicker and have additional flight options. In either straight to Detroit in 2.5 hours, or to be able to fly close by. So excited for that, and it's again one of our largest unserved markets from a direct flight standpoint. Also, worldwide connections that go out of Detroit from Delta as well. And then Spirit Airlines is for spring break, March and April, they're adding nonstop routes between Pensacola and Nashville, Dallas, Fort Worth, Detroit, and Chicago. And so look for more details. I believe it's in the March or April timeframe. We don't have the exact details on that yet. But again, while obviously the Spirit's in the news with some of their business and financial issues, nonetheless, are actually adding service here. So yet again, I think that's a solid confidence indicator about what how people feel about the potential of our airport. We have a CRA West Side Residential Property Improvement Program that's opening. Eligible property owners in the West Side CRA can apply for the improvement program beginning Monday. So it offers up to $105,000 in funding to assist applicants with interior and exterior home improvements. And our website will have information about program and directions if you live within the West Side CRA. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. That will be up on our website tomorrow morning. Trolley service update. We had 1,100 people ride the free trolley between the parking lots that we had set up during the new year. We saw a significant larger number on Saturdays. And as a former downtown business owner, as we know, January and February a little slower than November and December. So what we're going to do, I told you guys we would do it through the new year and kind of assess. We're just going to move it to Saturdays. I would probably, really for January and February, we'll probably go Saturdays only. Same times that we had before. But we saw significantly, about twice as many people were using it on Saturday. So just to be as efficient as we can, where we're meeting demand, we're going to move it to Saturday and continue to have that through January and February. And last thing, just another reminder, the Haas Center Resident Satisfaction Survey runs through January 17th, and postcards went out before the holidays, so residents should start to see a postcard in their inbox. And you can actually even call if you'd like, if you don't want to fill it out online, 850-495-2666. Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, or you can go, it's on our social media. I know links are on our website, and uwf.edu/Haas resident survey. So I know long list over the holidays, but that's everything that we've got. I'm happy to take your questions.
Mayor, on the increasing security for parades and events, do you anticipate costs going up for those who want to put on those events?
I do. Well, I know our costs will go up, and I think that needs to be part of this conversation. And I don't mean, for example, if bollards get put out, I think the expectation should be the city is putting those out, the city is inspecting those. If signs go out, so vehicles are towed off of the route. So let's just use an example that's pretty prevalent, which is someone will park overnight on Palafox, North Palafox, South Palafox, in the middle of the parade route before maybe the barricades go out, and that is a significant safety concern, right? Especially especially after what we've seen. So we're working on an ordinance right now that we're going to be able to move any vehicle at any time for the issue of public safety. Now, our PPD team does a great job. They look at the license plate. They see it's Rick's car. We call, find out, try to get it out of there. Yeah. You're working late weekends on Palafox over there, but so we still do that. It's not like we aren't, but as 100,000 people start to line up around a vehicle sitting in the middle of the parade route, I think that's a good anecdotal example of what we're talking about. That in the world that we live in today, that didn't mean we didn't care about it before. Didn't mean we didn't have a policy before, but we don't have maybe the formalized ordinance for us to be able to make quicker decisions than we do now. So if you leave a call, what do we need to do that? Well, we put signs out. Right now, currently, the policy is if it's Mardi Gras or Fiesta or Gallery Night, the obligation is on them to put the sign out. So to your question, that will be changing. I can pretty much, we haven't formalized that, but I believe the city and whatever cost that would bear upon the user is we need to formalize when those signs go out to say don't park here because we're going to tow you because you're in the middle of the parade route or in the middle of gallery night. When we leave it to the third party or to the vendor, the operator of the event, we have less control over when those signs go out. So a lot of the complaints are, well, I left my car in the thing, but they didn't put the sign out until 2 hours before. Well, we're not going to, no more middlemaning that. We're going to set the standard of, and so to your question, will there be, for organizers, will there be more expense? More than likely, and it'll be in things like that. Passing on the costs of what does it take for us to go, if you want this road shut down, what is the actual cost? We know we'll never recoup the cost. It's kind of like youth sports fields. There's no world in which we're going to be able to charge enough that we expect, that's part of our service. This would be no different. I think our permit fees for parade, I don't remember, it's like $500 or $1,000, and I think it costs us $50,000 to run one. I don't like that delta, but very much, but we understand that there's going to be some cost, but I think it's going to cause a bigger conversation between the county, between our tourism partners and us to say, hey, if these are things that bring in tax dollar, because it takes place geographically in the city limits, doesn't mean that the obligation should end in the city limits. And I don't assume that's how everybody feels about that. But if these are 100,000 people coming downtown, sales tax and bed tax is split up the same way no matter where it's located. And so I think it will, I don't know what the conversation is yet, but I think we're going to be looking at public safety should be job one for all of us. And for example, are there assets that we can cohesively, whether between the sheriff's department and police department, that we can have together that can be helpful on the same time at Blue Angels as it is during a parade, for example?
That brings up a follow-up question, because I know the sheriff's unit, they do have mobile camera units that
they do.
They deploy during parades. Do you foresee more cameras downtown or something that plug into the real-time crime center? I know y'all have a dispatcher.
Yep.
PD has someone there. It would seem that would be part of
definitely.
Your
We have done some of that already. All of the new cameras that are in Jefferson Garage are already linked to the real-time crime center, as are many others. We do have staff there. Actually, as a matter of fact, one of the council items you'll see is a $75,000 grant accepted for a new drone for our police department. Sheriff's department does the same thing. We have a great relationship with Chip and Tommy and Andy, and I sent them an email yesterday asking for help and some additional resources for parades coming up, and they wrote back and said, "Tell us what you need." So our PVD and Sheriff's Department are meeting. If it's not today, it's real soon, about what those needs might be. So extra officers, extra resources, all of that, because this is a community event. These are community things. We are not the world that we just realize more than ever that we live in now doesn't mean that this is what happens at the police department, and if it's outside this mythical line here, then now it's not our responsibility. These are community events that our county residents and our city residents enjoy, and we need to treat that as such. And I don't say that because I don't think everybody agrees. I think we all do, and anytime we've ever asked the Sheriff's Department for something, they've stepped up and done that, and they do have great resources. I mean, we train at some of their facilities. We use their shooting range for training. So this is something we do every day, and this would just be another chapter of that. But I do think it will be a community conversation about how do we best keep this safe. So we want to come up with that prescription, and then we'll quickly be having conversations outside of the city limits about what's best for the community as a whole.
You mentioned the barricades that went up this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You said that came from partners. Where did those come from?
So there are assets. I'm going to go off memory. We'll confirm this, but I believe it's through FDLE, and there are 18 of the barricades that you saw, the ones that stand up, that can withstand significant, and more so can be deployed on the sidewalk. Where obviously we've got a plan where we've got vehicles on the roads and all of that, so there are some. We appreciate our partnership with FDLE to let us utilize those. There's 18 of those that were put out on Saturday that are located in Panama City, and our hope is, and what we understand is that there's about 54 of them that will be deployed into Escambia County. So we won't have to, because there's a logistical delta there between having to go get those every time and bring them back, from Panama City. So we believe 54 of those are coming to Escambia County for use. Sheriff's Department, Police Department, whoever would request them and have them a little bit closer. So I don't have a time frame on that, but that was something, again, in the hours after our police department was already working on to say, given how close we are to this, and that we have significant, several street closures about to take place in the next 2 months, that we jumped at the chance to utilize that, and hopefully as those move closer, that would become this really part of the standard, part of the security plan would be having those out everywhere at every event.
Then,
Silver Airways filed for bankruptcy. Is there any concerns here at local operations here at the airport?
Silver, did you say? Matt and our team are on top of that. I do know that the CEO of Spirit has reached out to our airport staff. I don't have the result of that conversation, but I'm sure, look, we want to provide service. We don't want to cause any inconvenience for folks that have tickets booked with whatever carrier. So I'm sure we're working, hand in hand with it. I know we are. I know they were emailing and connecting. This, again, CEO of Silver and Matt, our Coughlin, our airport director. So wherever that goes, I know we're in close communication with them, and if anything changes for our travelers, we'll let them know as soon as possible.
back to the security thing. Obviously, the city's doing the redesign of Palafox. Is that going to play into anything?
Absolutely.
With permanent infrastructure?
Absolutely. Yep. I would regret every day we wouldn't have done that. And it already was. It's not that we were doing nothing before. We talked about bollards at every stop, including within Palafox. That's something we don't have now. So if you, for example, if you wanted to block off one block of Palafox, it's not just the east and west but you'd be able to actually bollard up north and south, for example. So those are types of things we were already discussing because of the lack of those things. But of course, I think we'd be remiss to spend north of $5 million on a generational project in Palafox and not take a fresh look at that. That was an email that went out pretty close to the morning of January 1st to say, what can we do and what can we do, better and through what infrastructure should go in place, what type of bollard, what intensity of bollard does that, all of those things are on the table. So yes, I don't have the final answer to that, but that's a discussion taking place as we speak.
Mayor, has Director Coughlin given you any traffic report from Pensacola Airport over the holiday period, the 2-week or the month of December?
No,
Year over year?
he has not. I can get that for you. I'm sure he'll. You just asking that, I'm sure he'll hear it and probably have it in my email before I get back up to my office. He's always on top of that stuff. But, my joke would be I'm going to say 13% because 13 to 15% is every year. But that'll be my prediction. But I don't know. We'll get those numbers for you. We know it was anecdotally busy. Certainly talking to Matt in conversation, but we'll get you those numbers.
So, Mayor, also, Breeze Airlines suspended service to Mobile Brookley Field last week. And the airport director down there said that this was a complicated decision because we guaranteed Breeze certain revenue per passenger mile. Does Director Coughlin have any arrangements like that? I know they set gate fees. It's a complicated formula, but it's designed to support the airlines themselves and make sure that the airport is viable.
Yeah.
Under the FAA. Do we have any deals like that?
I couldn't speak to if we specifically have them. I do have a working understanding and knowledge of, just from Visit Pensacola days and everything, and this job, understanding of generally the concept you're talking about is whether it's, some airports will do, they'll mitigate losses. For example, they'll say, hey, if this route loses $250,000 this year, we'll cover the first $250,000. To help attract service. It's kind of like a bet on yourself in a way, to say, hey, we know it's going to be busy, so you're not going to lose any money, but if you do, we would kind of back end protect you. That there's lots of incentives for new service that have come in. I'm not aware of any specific, one that we have. I will tell you on the topic of Breeze, we feel really good and strong about our partnership so far, the flights to Tampa. And all that, and certainly we are aggressively looking to expand their service and expand their footprint, and I know we're in conversations about that. So what I would say is I wouldn't make any assumptions on what happened in Mobile to be the case in Pensacola. For anybody who sees that and says, well, I wonder what that happens for us. We certainly don't run the airlines. We can't control what decisions they make, but what I would tell you is we feel really good about that relationship so far. And I feel we're more in the mode of how can we expand service with Breeze than we are concerned that they would be leaving.
The airport director at Mobile said that Breeze was so important to them at Brookley Field because a lot of their clientele, the passengers, come to Pensacola for these direct flights. And they thought Brookley would be closer to downtown Mobile.
Yeah.
And so I guess they've got a major building 5 new gates down there, 1,000 parking garage, all of that at Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But clearly they've got Pensacola directly in their view.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and the numbers certainly, we're the top service for Baldwin County because of the convenience and all that. And certainly I'm not on top of exactly what they're doing over in Mobile, but I feel real good about the product that we have. And again, the mayor should always feel good about that, and they'll probably figure out a way to feel good about it no matter what. But what I tell you is, as I just read off to you, the proof's in the pudding, and we're getting more service. And an interesting stat, and we can get you some of these examples, is what gets lost in some of this is the number of seats. So, for example, we may fly to Atlanta on Delta 7 times a day, 8 times a day, or on American to Dallas. Well, what might have been a a 80-seat plane on one of those routes 5 years ago might now be 140 seats. So you see the same route and think nothing's changed, but when you look at the actual equipment that's coming in, and that's really one of the growing things. Go look at the airport next time when a flight's ready to leave. When I say we have a 3 million passenger airport that's built for $1.5 million, one of the most stark examples of that is the seating areas for the gates. They were built for 2x2, 75, 80 passenger planes. Now thank goodness, now we've got all of this service coming in. So one of the interesting, you guys know I'm a data nerd about this stuff, one of the things I always like seeing when we get these updates is what's the percentage of seats going up? Because in reality, that's just as valuable. Even though they're going to the same place that they were, it's the fact that you might have 500 more seats a quarter going to on those planes based on the equipment. So, proof's in the pudding. More seats, more routes, more nonstop options. We continue to see that, and I know our team out there is doing a great job.
While we're talking about airport, I know with the cold weather,
Mhm.
are there any currently, or do you familiar with any of the operations going on at the airport where they're helping to de-ice some of these planes, especially coming in from the northern region?
I don't want to talk out of turn on that. I'd check with Matt and Brian out at the airport and get their response to that. What I know is obviously as much as anybody in terms of weather updates I get in my inbox, EOC and the airport are pretty much neck and neck for being on top of it on the hour. Got another one this morning from airport staff on just that's going out to all of our partners on what's going on at the airport. So I know they're on top of it, but in terms of the technical, I'd hate to say we are or aren't doing something. I check with them, and they might be able to get you a clear answer on that.
Anecdotally, I saw a number of the American Magic guys up at the beach this past weekend. Do you know where they are on repositioning those assets out of Europe back here?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, it came up in one of our meetings this week. The leadership, not all of the leadership, but I think about 30 American Magic folks are back here now. They are quickly, aggressively moving to start work actually in Warehouse 9, which is the warehouse adjoining Warehouse 10, which is under construction. So they'll have kind of a temporary setup there as we continue, with that repair and construction project. So, but yes, the anecdote is accurate. It wasn't just some tourists in American Magic jackets. The employees are back too, and so we're thrilled to have them back. And again, from you won't see them out sailing or anything like that at this point, but yes, we've got, I believe the estimate from our port folks is we've got about 25, 30 employees back at American Magic here, kind of getting their feet under them, getting into this temporary location and getting work going. So,
any updates on when you'll actually see boats on the water?
No, not yet. We could probably get those quickly. I think the first notable thing where you'll see some American Magic involvement, I don't mean it's their boat, will be those regattas, those GL52 regattas, the first one starting March 19th. They're obviously playing a key role in that. You'll see some presence with Foiling Week as well, but I don't know. Yeah, we could find out, but I don't know when they'll be back sailing on the water.
On the airport cell phone line,
Yeah.
Where is that going to affect the current long-term parking capacity? Is it going on an occupied space?
That's not my understanding. Let me clarify that before I say. But yeah, let me clarify that. If that's rearranging existing parking or lowering parking in that short-term lot, or if it's clean space, I'm not 100% sure on that. It's not a significant lot, so if it were the case, I don't think we'd be talking about a significant number of spaces, but we may be none at all. Let us follow up with the adjacent. I'll get that answer for you.
Anything new on the study for a mooring field that was discussed by council last April was going to cost about $50,000?
No, we still intend to do that. Our goal is a breakwater that can increase our resiliency for our downtown. That's kind of it's a big ticket item. Ultimately, we're in several millions of dollars. But what we know and what our formula that's been very successful in grants has been is hey, you can't just come up with an idea and then go ask for it. You've got to show some intentionality. You got to show some data that says that this project might be better than another project they're looking at funding. So our goal with that 50,000, which we continue, we've got the funding for, and I'll have to get a status update on exactly where, if it's out for bid or if we've selected already. But it's a feasibility study of that'll really answer the questions, kind of the same as the parking garage. Where would you put it? About how big? About what the cost? Option A, option B. That's what the feasibility study will show us. The next step would be design. Obviously, that's a significant step, and that's where you get really technical. But yeah, hasn't moved yet. I believe it was part of ARPA funding, but I'll have to look. But I know it's slowly progressing.
Mayor, I know you'll probably get into this later this week with the council, but the deal with Conservation Florida,
Mm-hmm.
did it have any surprises in there for you and the team as y'all were putting this together? It's things like ceding operational control of the property to a third party.
Mm-hmm.
Was there
Nothing that came. I know there was some legwork on our side because, of course, our arrangement with Conservation Florida is that it will be conserved in perpetuity. So when you do that, for example, they're going to need ultimately title or ownership, information on every. Well, the city owns a lot of it, and then the city actually leases from the state some of that acreage. So it gets a little convoluted. Also in perpetuity. So it's not an issue, but it's not just as clean as saying, hey, the city owns all of this property. Here it is. So we had some legwork. Nothing that's crazy, but just we had some legwork to get that information. But from a design standpoint, from a construction standpoint, we are in lockstep, and certainly this is not a project. Ultimately, we're going to manage the project, so it's not as if the 2.2 million, even though it's through Conservation Florida, and we will work in tandem to come up with what that product is. At the end of the day, they certainly understand that.
But, so the operations, though, belong to the city. I mean, there's been no restrictions on hiking, camping, fires, things like that. Fishing.
That I'm aware. No, not that I'm aware of at this point. I mean, or that I've ever been made aware of. That if your question is, are there limitations that have been put in place because now it would be in the conserved by Conservation Florida, I have not been made aware of that. I would hate to guarantee you that there is no change because, but I nor before, during, or so far after that process have I been notified. Other than the next 50 mayors after me can't sell it. Or 100 mayors. That's all I know is the only change in behavior. So, but if something like that comes up, we'll certainly let you know.
Any early returns on the red light cameras?
Yes. What I would tell you, we will have an update for you next week. But what I'll tell you is there's a lot of people running red lights. That's what I'll tell you. And
surprise you?
No. But you'll be surprised when you hear the number next week. The only reason I wouldn't give it's only about a 5-day sample size, and we don't have we've got the anecdotal number. We don't have it on paper. I want to go out in the public and say this.
So a big number.
Yes. More than big. Yeah. And by the way, that's also at 9 total approaches that are up. That's not, so remember, not all of them are up. So we will get you those numbers, but before we announced those publicly, we wanted to show you what they were, where they were located, all of that stuff. And I already know, I'll give you 2 weeks of primer on that. That does not include this number will not include right-hand turns on red. That's one of the conspiracy theories out there. That it include now that there's cameras, we're going to do right turn reds. We are not. It is left turn reds and straight on. That is we have no idea. If you ask me how many people went right turn on red, I don't know that we'll have that answer because that's not what these are in the police. It's about T-boning somebody across an intersection. So the numbers are, I would say, early on and could change. What happens next week are staggering. So
Any
I-
difference, times of day that you've been able to pull out of the data?
Not yet. I've just heard the big number. I don't know times of day, which approaches, and that's why we're not hiding that information from you. We want to have all the information to you before we say how many hundreds of people have run red lights in 5 days. So we'll get you all that information, and if we can break it down by time, obviously that's an interesting note as well. And this isn't just to prove their validity or not. I've said this the whole time. If we see like we don't need them, and the taxpayers paying an expense to these vendors, then we'll take them out. We'll take this one out, or we'll change or adapt. This is not an ego thing where we're going to put our foot down and say that we're not going to change. We should absolutely be analyzing this data regularly. There'll be lots of interest in it now because we just started, of course, and right now it's interesting because no one's getting, this is the grace period. So, so I think it's important for our citizens to know how many people are running red lights, and we're not saying it because they're all getting tickets. None of them are getting tickets. They might, I believe they're getting a $0 ticket in the mail. I believe. I'll confirm that next week. But I hope they are. If the only reason we wouldn't was if technologically we couldn't do it. But I'll check on that. But we want people to know before it's about money or it's about all the other theories. We're going to let you know how many people are running red lights. And I think back to your original question, do I feel with any more conviction that we've done the right thing by putting red light cameras in? Yeah, I do. And once I've heard that number.
Back in October, you indicated negotiations on the old Baptist Hospital property was on schedule. Is there any update, and do we have a potential demolition date?
No. Yes, everything's on schedule. No, we don't have a potential demolition date. We have dates for I gave the update a couple weeks ago that we had 16 qualified bidders. But we continue to stay on track on the same timeline we've provided to ultimately our hope is sometime in late January, early February that we have what that price is, and I think that's is significant. We are in discussions with Baptist on we feel good about the donation agreement and kind of starting that between attorneys, kind of starting that direct negotiation. We feel good with the product we're sending them. Obviously, that will be traded back and forth, and we expect that there'll be different opinions on different sides. But we've gotten what we feel good about getting that to them. So in tandem with waiting on funding and dates, we're also continuing to work closer to finalizing that donation agreement as well. So. So we feel good about exactly where we are, and we'll be updating all of our leadership on that, both in one-on-one meetings and publicly, and we'll continue to update you. But we should these next 30 days, as I've said for probably a couple months now, these next 30 days, 45 days will be pretty significant in terms of understanding what the financial lift is and if we can make it happen.
On that, do you feel any pressure at all to get the donation agreement finalized before the start of the legislative session, based on comments Representative Andrade made last fall?
I feel confident moving forward exactly where we are. All of our legislators know we continue to be transparent and communicative about exactly where we are, and again, our commitment has never wavered, both financially at this point of all of the money that we've spent at the city just to get to where we are today, and environmental assessment, obviously going out and getting this bid out to get the RFQ done. So all the time and heart and effort and energy put forth by our team to get here, certainly I'm appreciative of them, and it speaks volumes to to our commitment to this project. So no, not at this point. I feel like we'll continue to let our legislators know how important this project is, and we continue to be, our timeline, we expect to be, pretty close to the start of session anyway. So, and always have been, not really. I mean, that was not a behavior shift based on public comments or anything. I mean, this is where we've been targeting for quite a while now, and we feel good about the process we're on.
Governor DeSantis approved $600,000 to buy land near NAS Pensacola for low-cost housing for military personnel and their family. What can you tell us about the property and what's next with developing that land?
Yeah, that's great. I didn't actually. We've been waiting to say that till Governor DeSantis did. So I'm glad it's out there. So our Anna Kate and Erica and our economic development department, we saw this grant come through that. Grant opportunity come through that where we would be able to acquire property to help bolster military housing, and so it's not tied to a specific property. To your question, so it's not. It needs to be built at this address, but ultimately it's a $600,000 grant that has a little bit of match, maybe 20 or 25%. I'll have to look. That will allow us to go acquire property, and then my vision for that is that much in the way we did with the old Malcolm Young property, that we say, hey, here's our investment would be this property, and then my goal would be to be able to put in affordable housing for active duty military within the city limits. So obviously we'd be looking somewhere on the west side of the city limits, closest, what's as convenient as possible to the base. But we're very, very grateful for Governor DeSantis and his team to recognize the value of that. We all know, we hear the number, 40% of our economy is built around the military base, and I feel pretty confident. I've got a right-hand man that knows this world, has forgotten more about this world than I know, and will be an integral part of, Tim will be an integral part of helping us see that through. But we're grateful for that. Another huge win and success by our grant staff, by our economic development staff to get that property, or get that grant, and then find that right piece of property where we can, make it easier for our young heroes here training on base to be able to live in our city affordably. Anything else? All right, thanks guys.